everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. We got a little job to do today. I've got a couple of small block Windsor Ford engines here that are dead. So we're gonna just for fun, we're gonna take them apart, see what's going on, check out the differences between the two, because there's quite an age difference between the two, and there's a cubic inch displacement difference between the two. Here's the first one. Nick from the Real Guy Garage brought us this. He got it, I think, at an auction or something for almost free. So we're pretty sure this is a 221 or a 260, and it is likely from the first or second year of Windsor production. So that'd be 62, I think, was when the Windsor engine came out as a 221 in the Falcon, and I guess the Fairlane too. You can see it's old. Like you can see here, it had a generator on it, not an alternator, and it's got solid linkage, not a cable for the throttle. It doesn't have a PCV. You see here, it's got a draft tube. So yeah, this is an old one, and I did see on the side of it, right there, a rebuilder tag. At some point in its life, this engine was in a machine shop and was overhauled. Unfortunately, it sat around and got moisture in it, and it's locked up solid now. It's been sitting for like at least a year with oil in it, and I still haven't been able to bust it free. I think I put oil in it. So anyway, it is what it is. So we're going to take it apart, see if we find anything interesting in there, see if we can grab a few bits and pieces that we can use for ourselves. And I guess, unfortunately, the rest of it's going to go in the shredder. Well, here's the first good thing I got off of this, a proper original Ford coil. I like that. This is pretty cool. This is old school. A hard line connecting the vacuum advance to the carburetor. You know, they didn't do that too long until they figured out that it was a lot cheaper to use a piece of rubber hose. But, and it's got this loop in here, so that kind of gives you the leeway to adjust the timing. Is that ever interesting? This is something interesting here. You can see the carburetor's got this passage attached to the intake manifold. I'm curious to see what that is. There's a lot of interesting stuff on this that I'm not exactly familiar with. Hey, look at that. The carburetor actually is free. It's got a dash pod on it too. That's cool. It's got an old rebuildable fuel pump on it, which unfortunately got busted. That was me with the forklift. Oh well, my bad. Alrighty, now we can get this thing on. Oh, need a bigger gun than that. Well, I busted it. That's how long this thing was sitting around. See if I can get that off of there. Oh, she's stuck on there good. On those two broken studs. Hang on. Okay, we got it to budge. Let's see what the heck we've got here. Now it's stuck on these studs. One thing at a time. It's got to come straight up, but it's coming straight up off 6 bloody studs. There we go. Almost. Jeez. Oh, okay. So what that is, it's water going through there. This is they're using this, coolant goes through here, and they're using this to heat the base of the carburetor. You see that on a lot of Canadian cars. On the 390s, and then this here carries on to the, it goes through here, and then that carries on to the heater. You see it on FE engines, but there's a separate elbow over here that points to that. So that's all that is. Look at the stuff in there. Gives you an idea how long this thing might have been sitting. Now I gotta see if we can get the distributor out. First we gotta see if it'll move. Oh, it moves. If it moves, it ought to come out. Well, let's see. Get up underneath it and see if we can tap it up. Looks like it's coming. Yeah, it's coming. There we go. Come on. There. One distributor. Oops, I dropped a bunch of junk down there. Sorry. Oh, you know what I should do now? Is get a drain bucket and pull the drain plug out of this thing. And make sure it's not full of oil or whatever. So let's see what comes out of here. You never know what's going to come out of these things. Okay. Look at this oil filter. Oh man. Oh boy. Wonder if we can get that off. I'll try. Okay. Oh no, I need a bucket underneath that because the drain bucket isn't going to catch it. We'll leave the oil filter on for now until I close this back up. Okay, there's our water pump. Yeah, look at all the scuzz in there. Kind of a different water pump. That's a really early style. Okay, let's see what's in here. Yee! Good grief. That's a well-serviced engine. Holy cow. Mother. Also, this is indicative of the way engines used to get inside before we had positive crankcase ventilation. I'm forgetting this one is running a draft tube, and it was really hard to keep them clean inside in the draft tube days. Holy moly, what a mess. Okay, let's get this intake manifold off of here. I took all the bolts out. At least I think I did. Yeah. Sometimes they need a whack. There we go. Let's see what grossness awaits us under here. Yeah, it's gross, but not overly gross. You can see the sludge though. Lots of sludge. Oh, okay, let's get this oil filter off. It's all smashed. It's been off before, I think. Yeah, nothing in it. Okay, good. Now I'm going to see if I can get these manifolds off. Oh, they're not even tight. Uh-oh. Might have to do some socket bashing on here. Let's see here. That bolt is pretty rounded off. Oh, it came out. What do you know? So we've just got one left holding up the show here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so these are funny little things. Look at the little outlet in it. It looks like something off a lawnmower. But it was just a tiny little engine, right? You know, this thing started out, this is how it started out, 221. And then over time it grew until they raised the deck height and made a 351 out of it, you know. It gained 130 cubic inches from here till there. That's pretty impressive. I pulled the plugs out of it to have a look at it. Most of them, like this one, look pretty decent. But this one here, the front one here, I'd say that's the one that's causing our engine to not turn. You can see there it's been really wet inside that cylinder. And I found another one with some signs of that one. Looks like it's maybe been a little bit wet. So I don't know. Anyway, we're going to get the rockers and the push rods out, and then we'll pull the heads off and see what we see. Well, let's get a head off and see what we see. Oh, yeah. Well, my guess which was the cylinder that was keeping it from turning was wrong. It's that one. Oh, dear. Look at the tiny little valves. Oh, boy. Let's pull the other one off. So sad. Again, this is a rebuilt engine. It's got a rebuilder tag on it. So somebody, I guess, pulled it out of the scrap car and said, hey, that's a rebuilt engine. We'll keep that. Well, they kept it all right. Tiny little bores. We should be able, though, to measure the bore and see what the heck this thing is. So I was incorrect in assuming that this was the one that was keeping it from turning. There must be other ones keeping it from turning, because you can see here, it's actually broken the piston when it was full of water, and the water started to freeze and tried to push the piston down, while the other ones wouldn't let the piston go down, and it actually busted the top of the piston off above the top ring. Wow. Yep. Too bad. Okay. This is as good as any. We'll measure the bore of this one. And so we've got 3.51. So, yeah, it's a 221. And it's bored. There's a bit of a ridge there. It's probably 20 over, I would guess. If I cleaned up one of these pistons, I'd probably see plus 20 on them. Yeah, there you go. Look at 20. So it's a 20 over. The 221 was 3.5 inch, and this is 3.5 plus 20 thou. So it's a 221. Who knows what year it is? It'll be 62 or 63. I think that's the only 2 years they made the 221. Sad, really. We'll flip it over. See what the crankshaft looks like. Maybe it's got a nice clean crankshaft in it. Somebody might want that. I don't know. I hate throwing out good stuff that people can use. It's sad, really, that so many of these old engines end up this way. But what are you going to do? We got it flipped up here, and you can see here's the hot pour date of this block, 1L16. So 1 is 1961. L denotes the month, so A, B, C, D, A being January, etc. And they don't use I. So L is technically the 12th letter in the alphabet, but they don't use I. So in this case, it's the 11th. So that's November the 16th. So this block was poured on November the 16th, 1961, and it would have been used in a 1962 model car. So we're going to get this pan off and see what we see inside. Well, let's see what's in here. Well, it's not that bad. It's got the usual amount of sludge for a draft tube engine. But everything else seems to look okay. We'll get this oil pump out of the way, and then we'll start knocking some pistons out and see if we can get the crankshaft out of it. Well, all the pistons are out. Nothing like the slugfest we had on that old Mercury 410. You remember we pulled that out of that 58 Meteor. This one here was the worst one, and you can see there it took some pounding. I'll see what the bore looks like when I turn the thing back right side up. But at any rate, the connecting rods all survived. The crankshaft looks like it should be okay. It's turning freely now. This crankshaft was used in 221, 260, 289. They're all the same. They're all the same crankshaft. I'm not sure about the 289 hypo. if it would use this crank or not, or it had its own. But something interesting to note here, we'll see that it does not have a harmonic balancer. It's just got this cast iron pulley with a bob weight cast into it. That is it. And there's a corresponding bob weight on the flex plate. There it is there. That was the one difference between the 221 and the 260 and the 289. They all had different balance because of the different weights of the pistons. But the crank connecting rod's same in all three of them. The 302, it's unique. The 302 has its own crankshaft, its own rods, and its own balance circumstances. We'll see that. We'll compare the parts once I get the 302 in here. So now I'll get the front of this thing off, and we'll see what the timing chain and everything looks like. Well, we can see here with the front off, she was in a machine shop at one point, but it definitely got some miles put on it since then, eh? The old timing chain's looking a little whiffed, but that's all right. We're going to now get the fuel pump eccentric off, get the timing set off, and then hopefully at the back we can get this flex plate off. I think I can get in there with a flexible socket and just keep turning it one by one. And then once we got the flex plate out, we can see about getting the crankshaft out. Well, let's measure this crankshaft and see what we've got here. The main, standard size on the main is 2.249. Let's see what we got here. Make sure we got 2.229. So the mains are 20 under. So we've got 20 under mains. Let's see what the throws are. The throws on this should be 2.123. Let's see what we've got here. We've got 2.113. So the throws are 10 under. And the mains are 20 under. Let's give her a ring and see how she sounds. Yep, that's good. Could make Christmas music on it. Something else I forgot to point out. This is the original version of the Windsor block, and it's a 5-bolt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you hear them say that, 5 bell housing bolts. Later, they wanted to make a little bit more room in the bell housing, so they went to the 6-bolt casting. So there's 2 and 2 on each side, and I think that started around 65, maybe. It's in around there somewhere. And after that, they all shared this bolt pattern. And I kind of think Cleveland's. Are Cleveland's this bolt pattern too? And of course, the 6s. The 6s use this bolt pattern too. Next up is this one. It's an 80s 302. It's got a 2-wheel drive AOD transmission on it. I'm pretty sure at the time when we got it, the oil pan said it was from a truck or a van. We're going to get this thing unwrapped and see if we can refresh our memories a little bit. It's gray, so yeah, it's definitely 80s. Well, it's out all summer full of oil. I guess the first thing we can do is grab a bar and see if we could turn it. Not holding out much hope. I do remember how much water came out of it when I took the spark plugs out. Yeah, that's not happening. So we're going to start stripping this thing down. At least get all the accessories and everything off it and get it down to kind of a bare engine. And then we have to see about getting the transmission separated from it, which is always fun when they're seized because it's hard to get the converter bolts. So we'll just pull the transmission off, leave the converter behind, and we'll deal about the converter nuts after. But for now, we can go ahead and start kind of undressing this thing. A lot of this stuff will just be scrapped. The alternator's seized. It's got the truck cast iron water pump on it. All junk that we have no use for. So we'll get her cleaned off pretty quickly. Now that we're getting a little further into this thing, you can see here how the hard line for the power brake booster comes around and goes forward and then back to this. So that tells us this engine came out of a van. The weather has been nice, man. We're almost at the 20th November and guys are still flying around here on bikes. And I got the garage door up. Unreal. Plenty of years by the 20th of November, I was plowing snow. Anyway, that's all good. So, back to our job here. We're slowly getting this thing cleaned off. I want to get the valve covers, the intake manifold, and see if I can get the balancer and the front cover off so I've got as much room as I can to work at getting this distributor off, because I don't think it's going to be fun to get that thing out of there. It's in solid, man. It's in like a tree stump. I'd rather not wreck it, but you know, there's only so much effort I'm going to put into this thing, but we'll see. Oh, hello, Cooper. Well, timing cover's off, and I'll have to be careful because I can see in there she's full of oil. You can see here, just normal stuff. Single row chain, all wore out. We're slowly getting down to the distributor here. Now we'll get these valve covers off and pull the intake off, and then we'll have a wide open shot at this distributor. Well, it doesn't look too bad in there at all. And we can see it's got the modern style valve gear in it. Does have rotators on the exhaust valves. Hallmark of a truck engine. Okay, let's get this intake off. All right, with the intake off, we can see it's a flat tappet motor, but it does have the provisions for to bolt down the crab for a roller cam. So this engine is probably 86, 87, somewhere in there. You can see it's had a lot of water in it. In fact, it's here. Look at that intake port. It's still full of water. Oh, brother. Man. They go to all the trouble of taking this thing out of the car, and then they just let it rot. Don't ask me. Well, I guess we're this far. Let's get the heads off and see what we see in there. Okay, let's lift this head off and see what we see in there. Let's see what we see in here. Oh. See, I shot a bunch of transmission oil down it. Get the push rods out. But it didn't really seem to free it up. You can see here in the chambers, like, look at the guck in there. Boy, this poor old thing was just full of water. I'll pull the other one off and then I'll bring the camera around and show you that. Give me a sec. It's so sad because it's a pretty decent looking engine. This side was even worse. I'll show you. Look at that. Unreal. Don't let your engines get full of water, people. They'll keep ending up like this. We can see there the casting number. These are E5 AE heads. So this casting was first used in 1985. And then I kind of think, was there an E6 head? I know there's E7 heads. I'd have to do a little bit of research on that. But so it's, you know, like we figured a 86 or 87, 85 in there somewhere engine. Oh, look at that. We got the distributor out in one piece. Well, I got into a little bit of a contest, a battle with the starter. But we won in the end, starters off. So now I'm going to lower this thing back down. We can pull the transmission off and get this thing on the engine stand. There we have it. We're split. Now I got to try and get in here with a wrench and see if I can get those converter nuts undone. Then we can get the flex plate off and the separator plate, and we can get this thing mounted on the stand. So when I come back, hopefully this thing will be on the stand. Again, I couldn't get the phone started in time, but about a gallon of water came out before we got to some oil. Anyway, we got oil coming out now, so we'll let that drain, and then we'll get this thing flipped over and get the pan off of it. What a mess. Oh, I guess before we do that, we'll measure a bore and see what we've got here. So they said this engine was rebuilt, you know, whatever. To what extent, I don't know. But it's standard bore, 4-inch even, so it hasn't been bored. Okay, while this thing continues draining, we're going to pull the pan off this. We're going to flip it over, pull the pan off it, and see what the inside of it looks like. If it's been full of water like the engine was, yeah, scrapola. Like it sat there long enough. Like, look at this. The tail housing, the water exploded the tail housing. Now you can get tail housings for these. I've seen them on eBay for cheap, right? But we'll pull the pan off and see what it looks like inside. Well, there's water coming out of it. That can't be good. And you can see when this thing broke, it opened the inside of it to the atmosphere. Oh, man. What a disaster. All right, I got the pan kind of busted free. We'll pull this up and we'll see what's in here. We'll see it for the first time together. Yeah, this thing has been full of water. It's all free though. I kind of think it might be okay. So we'll put the pan back on it, and I'll stash it in the barn. That's a bunch of clutch material in there. That ain't good. We'll get that. We'll clean that out before I put it away. But there might be some hope for it yet. Maybe one day as a project we'll pull it apart and see how bad it really is. You can see there the block, the engineering code on the block is also E5AE for 85. So that this block was also first used in 1985. All pointing toward it being an 85 or 86 engine. Now we're going to lift this here oil pan off and see what we see in there. Yeesh. Oh, look at that. Yuck. All right, well, you know the drill. We'll get the oil pump out of the way, and then we're going to start slugging pistons out. Well, we could put a fork in this one. Where's the flash here? There. It's hard to see, but right there you can see a great big hunk of the cylinder wall busted into the water jacket from the water inside it freezing. I guess if you wanted to, you could sleeve that one cylinder, maybe, and get it back to life, but it's a 302. I mean, they're everywhere, right? It's not too hard to get your hands on another 302 block. So this one is going to go in the shredder, unfortunately, but we did get a crankshaft out of it. And it looks pretty decent. We're going to go ahead now and measure it and see what it's supposed to be. Okay, let's see here. The mains are 2.249 standard. The throws are 2.123 standard. So yeah, this guy telling me the engine was rebuilt. This engine's never been touched. Standard on the crankshaft. Standard bore, that's fine. I'm okay with that. The crankshaft looked really clean. So we'll just going to leave it covered in oil like that, wrap it up in heavy plastic, seal it, and stash it away until we need it. Almost forgot. Let's give it a ring. Yeah, that's a good ringing crankshaft. Something also worth mentioning, this is a 50-ounce imbalanced crankshaft. Up until 1982, the Ford small blocks used a 28-inch imbalanced crankshaft. Starting in 80, well, up to 81, I guess. Starting in 82, they used the 50-ounce imbalance. They beefed up the crankshaft a little bit, and they had to put a little bit more imbalance on that. So the balancer, the harmonic balancer, and the flex plate are different for these ones. And it's pretty easy to get mixed up. That happened to me once. My friend Jamie, God rest his soul, he had an 83 F100, and the engine went in it. And we grabbed an old Granada, and we put the engine, it was a 76 Granada, right? We put the engine from the Granada in his 83 truck, but we used his flex plate. And oh man, did the thing ever shake. We had to take it back apart. It was no problem. It was a pickup truck. I was able to just slide the transmission back a little bit and get in there with a wrench, and we were able to put the flex plate from the Granada back on the 76 engine, and then she was smooth as glass. So that's something to be aware of when you're messing with these small block Fords. Well, that'll do it for that one. Pretty sad end for these two poor little engines, but at least we got some bits and pieces out of them. I've already found someone, a guy I know that can use the crank and rods out of the 221 because he's got a 289 block sitting on a stand, but he's got no rotating assembly for it. So I'm gonna fix him up with that. He can have it. I got it for nothing, so he can have it for nothing. That's how we look after each other in this business. Anyway, I might, in a future video, I've got enough Windsor engines torn apart in the shop right now. Before I get rid of all this stuff, I may make a video illustrating just some of the real basic differences between them through the years. I'm by no means an expert on them, but maybe I can shed some light on some of it for you. But anyway, that's for another day. I'd like to thank you as always for tuning into the Claremont Classic Garage. We've grown this from nothing into something pretty good, and I couldn't have done it without you guys. Anyway, I hope you'll come back and see what we're up to next time. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long for now.